are so thrilled at this turnout. So my name is Stacy Hunt. I'm with Ecologistics, and this is the first of our Critical Conversations series this year. We try to keep the conversation going between our Bioneers conferences, which are held in October every year. There are cards, save the date cards over here, and brochures about ecologistics and what we do. And so we got an email one day from Robin and saying, I'm doing a speaking tour and I'd love to come and speak in San Luis Obispo. And when I looked and saw what he represents and what he does, I had to say yes. We're just thrilled to have him here. And I've just spent the last hour and a half with him having dinner and walking downtown slow and hearing his story, and I know you're going to love his story. So without further ado, here's Robin Greenfield.
How sweet to be here with all of you. Thank you. Last time I was in SLO, I was walking from Canada to Los Angeles, and I walked right past the bunker. And it was actually the worst day of the entire walk. I injured my knee, and it still hurt. So that's a part of San Luis Obispo that's been with me for the last 4 months. I got lost that day, and it started to rain unplanned, and then because I was turned around, I decided to run 4 miles with my push cart barefoot, and that didn't turn out to be in my wisest choices. But I'm so glad to be here with all of you and to have this evening together. So there's so much that I want to share, and I have to pack it all in, so I'm going to do my best, and to do my best to also give plenty of time for you to ask questions and for me to share answers, which is my favorite part. This talk that I'm prepared to share could easily be about a 2-hour talk, and I'm going to try to squeeze it into about 45 minutes, and then we'll have half an hour or so for questions or so. So I'm going to do my best. Last time I said that it went 1 hour and 15, but I'm going to do my best. So I'll just say you're going to get the summarized version a little bit. So right now, what I'm currently focused on is my current experiment, which is the experiment of non-ownership. And I'm going to go back just a little bit before that begins. And it begins at the border of Canada and Washington on July 28th of last year. I had simplified my life down to everything I own fitting in my backpack and went for a long walk. For those of you who have followed me for some years, you'll know that I'm usually doing something for, something to be of service, activism, raising awareness. But for this walk was just for me. I just wanted to go for a long walk, and I wanted to have some time to really be connected to the earth. I wanted to bring some deep integrity and truth into my life and get out of some of the rat race that I had put myself into. Which some of you are probably like, you in the rat race? I thought you broke free so long ago. But running a nonprofit and trying to make change, you can get in the rat race doing that as well. So the walk was designed to be a vessel to, with each step, let my past be my past, and to walk into the present moment and walk into the future. And what the future was that when I arrived in Los Angeles, I was going to give away every single possession that I had, down to the clothes on my back and my computer that I was so, I'm not going to say addicted to, but let's just say on for thousands of hours, and my money, and just enter into this, you could say, extreme experiment. But it wasn't just the physical that I was working to let go of, it was a lot of the mental as well. And so on the walk, I made a commitment that I was going to share everything in my mind that I was holding on to, everything I was guarding or hiding, every secret that I had. And in fact, I did a lot of that right here in San Luis Obispo in a hotel downtown that I don't remember the name of it. it was a little small motel that was like $60 a night. And but what I did is I recorded a 9-part video series where I shared like I said, every secret, everything I'd been hiding, so that I'd arrive in Los Angeles to a large degree not even owning my own mind, practicing this concept of Creative Commons of my own mind. Creative Commons is when what you create is for the public. And I thought, whoa, how wonderful it would be if my mind was for the public and I didn't even own that anymore. So I was doing a lot to prepare myself for the physical aspect. And so when I arrived in LA on January 26th, I had used this walk as my vessel to prepare myself to do what I would not have been able to do before the walk. And I arrived, and there was a group of people waiting. There was about 40 or so people, and they were there to take my stuff. I had a push cart by that point that I had everything on. It was a baby stroller, and I had about 100 items. And so they took all my items and the last of my money, which was about $220, and I sat naked in Griffith Park, literally owning no physical possessions, no money. And
how long before you got arrested?
I never got arrested.
That's good.
I still have never been arrested. I think the smile has something to do with it. But some of you might say, well, how could you, what about your car? Well, I got rid of that in 2012. What about your phone? Got rid of that in 2016. What about your driver's license? That was gone a long time ago. Passport, got rid of that in 2022. Birth certificate and social security card, already gone. So when I say own nothing, I mean I was literally sitting in Griffith Park owning no physical possessions whatsoever. And as far as money goes, no bank account, no credit card, no Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, no life insurance, retirement fund. So literally not a penny to my name and no physical possessions. Now I do still own, I have a website, I have social media, but I've released everything on there under Creative Commons. So it's like, there's an element of ownership there, but that's the whole idea of this experiment. It's to question, what is ownership? Is it as real as we think in the first place, which we're going to get to. So I lived in Griffith Park for about 3 months, and the few items that I need, I borrowed. So I, at first, only had 2 items, then it was 6, then it was up to about 15 max during that 3 months. Just the absolute basic things to cover myself. It was very cold, so, I wanted to just walk around in a sheet, but I would have been way too cold. And the Rangers would have been a little more on my case than they already were. And people would have thought I was crazier than they already think that I am. So, and now I'm on a short speaking tour around California for about a month, and the experiment of non-ownership continues. So all the talks that I'm giving are for free, and I'm just, my basic needs are being met by the people who host me locally, you give me a ride or put me on the train to where I need to get to next, and the few items that I have are from people that loaned them to me on the way. So I will continue to own nothing until at least the 18th in Sebastopol at the last talk. So all that to say, for a lot of people, I'm doubtful too many people in this room are like, but why? But I'm sure some people here even are like, okay, but why? Why would you want to go to this extreme? Why would you want to own nothing? So there's two main facets to this experiment. First, this is because it's exactly what I want to be doing. Doesn't matter if anybody cares whatsoever about this or if anybody wanted to come to any of these talks. This is just my deep exploration of life. I create these campaigns, these challenges, these projects that are designed to force me into exploring the realm which I would not otherwise go to and really, really, really dive deep. So it's my own personal journey and my own path that I'm walking. The second part is that this is a social experiment. It is designed to catch people's attention. It is designed to get people thinking. It is designed to stir things up. My friend Shaheen in Los Angeles said I'm a disruptor. And I was like, yeah, I'm basically here to disrupt things. But in a very authentic and genuine way. I don't want to disrupt anything by not being myself, but only by being myself. So first I want to share a little bit about my why, why I decided to do this, like what I'm seeking and what my objective is for this. So first, right now, I have decided that what I want to pursue is integrity, living in a state of integrity. And I want to pursue living in a state of truth. We all have our own definitions of what these are, but just for me, living in a state of truth and integrity. And right now I'm willing to risk losing everything that I've built, over the last 10 years, just to pursue that. And just say, whatever happens, happens. If everybody decides they don't like me, it's like, well, good news, I get a lot of time alone in nature then, so it wouldn't be so bad after all. So another aspect is dissolving the ego and humbling myself. Eating out of the garbage and Los Feliz and sleeping in the park where the rangers have an eye on me and needing to ask people for a sleeping bag to keep me warm or basic clothes to keep myself comfortable. It's all very humbling to be kicked out of places because I'm barefoot and to have so many people just just look down upon me and think of me as less. It's all very humbling, and I think it's very important as a servant, as a person who wants to create change in society, to be doing it from a humble place. And it has been humbling. I've definitely had a tender heart over the last few months with the number of people who just have so many negative things to say about me. But it's all a part of the equation, and I appreciate them. I have no trolls. My trolls are my greatest supporters. They get me into the algorithm, and it reaches more people, and that's why we're here together. So thank you to the trolls. I love you, trolls. It's also a practice of letting go of attachments. We're all operating from a place of attachments to different things, and this has been an opportunity for me to just let go of attachments. It's also a practice of being in the present moment. As I had no computer to go to the internet, no money to buy whatever I wanted, no even way to call someone or what have you. It's just existing in the present moment in Griffith Park. Spent more hours looking at the sky, appreciating the earth, watching the coyotes and the deer and the squirrels and the rabbits and the little pocket gophers, and being with the people, just being in the present moment. I think being in the present moment is actually one of the most powerful things that we can do in the times that we live in. I really think it's both an incredibly potent medicine, but it's also an incredibly powerful resistance to the culture that wants us to be spread so thin that we don't even remember who we are or what we're a part of. So a practice of being in the present moment. It's also a practice of interconnectedness. So I believe theoretically that everything is connected. Everything. I truly believe that. But to experience that is a whole different story. And so part of this practice is to experience that. The less distractions I had, the less things that I was holding on to, the more that I was able to just embrace that interconnectedness. And some of these are topics that are a little hard to really put words to and summarize, but that's something that I've experienced a lot of, just a lot less of a feeling of separateness and just being a part of people. A lot of times when I look into people's eyes now, I see myself, and it's just there's this often a dissolving of the separateness with others and with the trees and with the sky and so on. And then a practice of interdependence. So we live in a society that radically embraces independence, that we're supposed to all work for everything, have our own house, our own car, our own electric screwdriver, even if we only use it once in our entire lives. Annie Leonard said that the average electric screwdriver is only used for 30 minutes in its entire life, but we're all supposed to have one. We're not supposed to ask anyone for anything else. In this society, there's a lot of that. And so this is, for me, embracing my interdependence, to say, actually, it's a complete illusion that independence is a complete illusion. Behind every dollar we spend, we're still dependent upon someone else. We've just deluded ourselves to this reality. So this is just me saying, like, well, by saying I need you to, for food. I need you to help me meet my basic needs. That's a practice of interdependence in a society that has lost that. It's also a practice of simple living. Having nothing. Gotta live simply. And that's at the core of my desire, is just to live simply. Mahatma Gandhi said, live simply so that others may simply live, and we're going to explore that a little bit tonight. It's also a practice of developing wholeness and completeness within. When we think that we need everything that the corporations are trying to sell us, we're always vulnerable. We'll always be spread thin. But when we actually just fully love ourselves exactly as we are for who we are, then most of the distractions just fall away. We don't need the Old Spice deodorant anymore, or that's a personal one for me. I got rid of that 13 years ago. So just practicing wholeness and completeness within and inner peace, I truly believe that by existing in a state of peace, more peace is formed around us. And when we exist in a state of chaos, more chaos is formed around us. And that it's actually activism just to be existing in a state of peace. It's a beautiful, powerful thing. And then also to practice universal love. I really, 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 really like the idea of loving everything. Like, I just love the idea of loving everything and not hating anything. And some people are like, that's not possible. I know it's possible because there's a lot of human beings who embody that. Like, a lot of the human beings that I've learned from are existing in that state of universal love. And sure, they get frustrated sometimes or they don't like things, but it's possible. I truly believe that it's possible to ascend the hate and exist in a state of universal love. And again, not having anything, it's a great time to practice that. It's been a lot of practice over the last few months. And then all of this, for me, is about my ultimate goal. And my ultimate goal is to use every ounce of my being to be of service to Earth and life upon Earth. And that used to be hard for me to say because it sounds maybe like too much, but it's true. That's what I want. I just want that every moment, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, that I'm just being of service to this earth and to to all the life we share this home with. And so all of these practices are helping with that. They're all designed for that. So that's some of my why. I could easily speak for, an hour of the many reasons why. And if you do want to, there's much longer form talks that I gave in Griffith Park if you want to explore that realm with me. So, although I've gone a lot deeper over the last few months and also on this walk, this has been, to a large degree, my practice for the last about 14 years. In 2011, I was living a fairly typical US American lifestyle. I was very focused on material possessions and financial wealth. In fact, when I was 25, living in San Diego in Ocean Beach, my goal was to be a millionaire by the time I turned 30. And every Sunday I would spend an hour shining the wheels on my car and, the dashboard with the armor all. That thing had to be spotless. So I was very focused on my clothes and how I was perceived by society. And my car, it was a 2008 Mazda 3. I bought it new when I was a junior in college, I believe. My aunt paid for half and I paid for half. I used to sell educational books door to door and I sold a lot of books. So basically I was living this somewhat typical US American lifestyle, and I realized by starting to watch some documentaries and read some books and visit some websites and talk to people that the way that I was living was, well, I realized first of all that the American dream is actually the world's nightmare. That the world pays for this lifestyle. I learned that everything I was doing, the food that I was eating, the car I was driving, the stuff I was buying, the trash I was creating, the money that I was spending, my investments, my credit card swipes, my money even just sitting in my Chase bank account. Even the water that I was drinking from the tap was running the Colorado River dry. I learned that almost everything that I was doing was part of systems of destruction, exploitation, oppression, injustice, and inequity. And I mean like almost everything that I was doing. And I realized that most of what I was doing was because corporations had very large advertising budgets, and there were certain agendas out there that just wanted me to do things that way. And so I decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. And I decided I was going to break free. I was living in this web of consumerism. And I decided I was going to, one strand at a time, break free from that web. And while doing that, weave a new web, a web of community, a web of harmony, a web of relationships with the earth, with people, with the plants and animals. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 14 years. The first handful of years, it was a full-time job just to break free. You know, these systems really have us in there. I was easily working 40 hours a week just to break free from a lot of this. And I didn't have a house, kids, mortgage, any of that. So it's even for me, it was a lot of work. And so my life has been that. You know, my life is my message, living in this different way, and then also embarking on these extreme campaigns at the same time that really are me. I love doing this stuff, but they're also a show at the same time. A way that I design packages that media can easily report on. So as far as a little summary of that before I go into a little bit of what I want to explore through the experiment of non-ownership. There's four main aspects to this extreme experiment of non-ownership and all of my experiments. The first is my job, my intention is to stimulate critical thought. So just to get us thinking, critically questioning the societal structures, the societal norms, the concepts that even those of us that would call ourselves environmentalists or what have you, to push the envelope further, to really question things at a very deep level. Then along with that, the idea is to create conversation. Well, actually before that, along with that is to create self-observation. So that's what the Buddha taught. You know, as this form of enlightenment, as we observe our own minds. And so I really believe observing our own minds is a deeply powerful thing. If we don't know why we're doing what we're doing, that's just existing in this state of autopilot. So to really observe our own minds is the other aspect of that. Then to create conversation, to create community-based conversation about solutions for a different way, how we can do things differently together through community. And then along with that, it's not just like talking. I love talking, I love conversation, but we need to actually do things. So the fourth tier is building skills, the skills that we need in order to move forward in a different way, helping to provide the resources, the knowledge, the ways in which we can build those skills. So, okay, before I dive into some of the deeper concepts that I want to talk about tonight, I would like to do just a short little mindfulness activity for our own minds to open up our minds a little bit. So I welcome you to close your eyes if you would like to. There's no rules here, you can do whatever you want, but I welcome you to close your eyes, and we're going to talk about some, fairly deep topics where it's easy to get into a place of judgment of yourself or others, or a place of guilt or shame, or right or wrong, or good or bad. And so I just want to share that tonight, I certainly am dropping all of those things, and I welcome you to as well. So we want to be coming from a place of open-mindedness and love, and just let go of all the anything like guilt or shame, blame, judgment, right, wrong, good, bad, not even duty or obligation or should. We can just let go of all of that. And so although there is no good or bad, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. And that's what we're going to explore. So before doing that, I'd love to take 3 deep breaths together. And if you want to let it out audibly, you can, or however you feel. Hey, you started without me. Does anybody feel a little more relaxed? A little more here? Wonderful. We can always come back to our breath. That's something I've heard numerous teachers. Thich Nhat Hanh is someone who says that very often. We can always come back to our breath in these difficult times. Okay, so the first little topic that I want to talk about is consumer convenience. We all have some of it built into our lives, including myself. So I've been exploring the truth behind consumer convenience for the last 14 years, and that's really one of the most central parts of my life, is really whenever there's something that's convenient, asking myself, where does this convenience come from? And every single time I find that the reality is that somewhere, somebody is paying the price. Some being is paying the price. Some place is paying the price. I like to look at it this way. Most of us have probably heard the theory that energy is not created nor destroyed. The same amount of energy exists today as there did billions of years ago. That's basically what I see when it comes to consumer convenience. That's energy. That's a shift of energy, and wherever we have that shift of energy, energy is being taken away. Annie Leonard of the Story of Stuff, she calls this externalized costs. And so our lives, when we are living with this consumer convenience, there's so much externalized costs that are behind the scene. Now, I will say, I still like a kombucha from Whole Foods time to time, and I'll get myself a chocolate bar, and I'm sure glad to have gotten rides on this trip. So none of us, including myself, are immune to this, but for those of us that desire to ascend delusion, who are seeking truth, who are seeking to live in a way that is in harmony with the earth, it's something that I encourage you to hold with you each day. Whenever you're experiencing that convenience, ask, where is the true costs being externalized to? And then ask, is that in alignment, or is there a way that I want to do things differently? So again, it's not about good or bad or right or wrong, it's just about bringing our lives into alignment. So another thing that I want to talk about with that is labels. We have this desire to label things. That way we're like, well, I'm vegan, or well, I'm zero waste, or I only eat organic. Those are the only labels I can remember right now because I try not to use too many of them. But what I've seen is that mostly when I look at any label, this is what I do, I analyze things. Every single one of them doesn't show us the reality of our interconnected existence. They're all false safe zones. They allow us to compartmentalize so that we can feel comfortable and safe, which is important to be able that we need that comfort and safety. But we have to ask, how willing are we to delude ourselves? and instead ask the question, do I want to maybe, if the label doesn't do what it actually, says it does, then maybe it's not as valuable as I might think. So just another encouragement is to always be exploring the reality behind any of these labels and see if things are maybe more interconnected than we would think. So in the United States, we have 5% of the world's population, yet we consume 25% of the world's resources. Now, some people look at me and they're like, man, this guy is extreme. But I look at that and I see, wow, we are living in incredibly extreme times. I recently read Paul Hawkins' book, Blessed Unrest, and he shared that what took our ancestors 100,000 years to do as far as their environmental impact, we now do in 1 year. The average person now uses between 100 and 1,000 times more resources than our not so distant ancestors. So some people ask me, Robin, why don't you take a little bit more of the middle path? And my response is, actually, I am in the middle path. I'm just being compared to the most extreme society that has ever existed on the face of this planet. That's the reality of the times that we live in, as far as I can tell. We're way up there. So, again, just something worth thinking about. And so what is normalcy? From what I gather, normalcy is just whatever you see day after day after day, week after week after week, year after year after year. Think about it. Some of the things that are happening now that, like in 2016, we would have never imagined possible, but now they kind of seem normal, some of these things. So normalcy is just a concept. So it's another thing to always remember. Normalcy is just a concept. And so often, I just got a letter from an email from someone I read that actually she said that very thing, and she was like, she just started diving into my work a couple weeks ago, and she was like, man, all these years people have been telling me you gotta live a more normal life, like her mom and her colleagues and stuff, and she was like, it held her back so much to try to fit in with this normalcy. So it's just another thing to think about. It's like, what is actually normal? And most of what we see around us isn't normal at all. So all of this is supposed to make us a lot happier. All this consumer convenience, supposedly we're supposed to be a lot happier, a lot healthier, we're supposed to have more meaning and purpose, we're supposed to be the most fulfilled society that has ever existed on this planet. And I will not deny that we haven't gotten some fulfillment and some real meaning and purpose out of this, some of this stuff. There's no doubt that I would say everybody here's life has been enriched in different ways because of some of this consumer convenience. But there's a lot of researchers out there that show that we're actually the least healthy and least happy and most depressed and have the least meaning and purpose of any society that's ever existed. So another thing just worth thinking about. So at the core of this is, I like to look for the root causes to the problems that we have. And as I've started to explore the root causes, my basic belief is that all of the exploitation and the oppression has a very central theme to it, and that is that we believe we are separate. We believe that we're separate from the earth. We believe that we're separate from our global neighbors, our next door neighbors. We believe that we're separate from the plants and animals. We actually think we're separate from the bacteria, which actually, we are an interconnected culture of species, and if you take out the bacteria from this body, I die. I perish. We're disconnected, and we think we're separate from almost everything. This human superiority complex that we have. So my belief is that if you look at the core of almost every injustice and exploitation and destruction, at the core of that is the belief that we're separate. So there's two forms of separation that we're going to talk about tonight. So the first is ownership. That's the idea of this experiment of non-ownership. So I'd like to give a few critical thoughts here to this concept of ownership. So if you're going to buy land, you know how it works is one person owns the land, they sign over a contract, like a deed or a title, and now you own the land. We have to ask the question, did the earth sign that contract? Does the earth agree that it's now owned? And what about the plants and animals that live on that land? Do they agree that they're now owned? And what about the people that have had a relationship to that land for potentially thousands of years? Do they agree that now the person who signed that is the rightful owner? Or if the city decides, we're building a stadium, you're all gone, do those people agree to that concept of ownership? The answer is often, well, I don't have to say it. Land taxes. So when we don't pay the taxes on our land after a few years, do we still own the land? It goes to the bank or to the government. So how real is this practice of ownership even? In 2008, 2009, I think about 1 million people lost their houses in the housing market crises. I think for most of them, they saw, wow, ownership is nowhere near as concrete as we had believed. So there's actually cultures around the world that don't practice ownership like we do. In fact, most don't practice it to the extreme that we do here in the United States. But there's many cultures that barely even practice ownership at all. They have a different way of existing. And there's even cultures that have existed that don't even have a word for ownership. It's just not even a concept. So it's just, for me, at the core of this is questioning the unquestioned structures. Is ownership as real as we think it is? And ownership has allowed us to do some pretty, I'll say atrocious things in our lifetime. So when people came over from Europe, some would say like the settlers or the colonizers, with the concept of land ownership, came over to this body of land, which you could maybe refer to as Turtle Island, and they displaced, there was a genocide of millions of people who have lived on this land for thousands of years. And a large reason for this is because they believed that they could own the land. At the same time, 7 million human beings were stolen away from Africa and called slaves. They weren't slaves. They were human beings who were enslaved. When we label someone a slave, we dehumanize them. We create that separation. So 7 million people were stolen away from Africa because they believed you could own a person. So this is some of the depths of what we've been able to do when we believe in this concept of ownership. And some people would say, well, that's the past. That's not really relevant now. But when you look at the Constitution for this nation, and when you look at the laws, there's hundreds, thousands of laws that continue these injustices. Michelle Alexander calls it the new Jim Crow. So the other one that I want to talk about is money. There's some people out there who study this and they say that money only exists as long as we believe that it does. Shells were at one time money. Salt has been worth more than gold. Gold and silver has been our forms of transactions. I would say right now it's paper, but we're kind of, moving out of that, and now it's mostly digits on computers that's considered money. So when you have a stock market and billions of dollars exist and then just disappear overnight, it's like, how real is this? And when you have inflation and you can have a dollar double or half overnight, it's like, how real really is this? And when your life savings disappear overnight because a corporation does something corrupt, it's like, how really real is this? So money is a concept. Some people say money makes the world go round, but I'm pretty sure it's been going around a lot longer than money has existed, and it will continue to go around after money ceases to exist. So some people would say, well, this is fine and good and all, Robin, but right now isn't the time to be questioning these structures. We have a potential dictatorship to be fighting. We have, fascism, tyranny. We have we have this genocide, and we have this war, and we have the loss of, this human right, and, basic human rights. And I'm completely there. I mean, the whole idea of everything that I'm talking about right now is basic human rights, like every human being being treated as a human being, and all of us having a place on this earth, and being safe and comfortable, and having meaning and purpose. I think it's incredibly relevant to be going to this level right now, and I think it's as relevant as ever. And so, on that note, some people would say, I think that in these times, what dictators want is they want to spread us so thin, disempower us so much, disconnect us with everything, make us believe that we're separate, so that we lose our basic foundation. And so I think now is just as important a time as any to be asking these questions and really going deeper. And so when we look at our political situation and we say, right now, some people would say, I'm trying to save our democracy. Well, we'd have to have a democracy in the first place. And when you look at what we have, we by definition do not have a democracy. Whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans in charge, we haven't had a democracy for quite some time. So when corporations are considered citizens and they are able to spend unlimited funds or near unlimited funds buying politicians, that's no longer a democracy. Because what is a democracy? A vote is a vote is a vote. All votes are equal. We are a country that is run more by corporations than people. And this isn't a Democratic or a Republican thing. This has been the standard trajectory, whether there's a Democrat or a Republican. I mean, I love Obama, but that's still something that, continues under any of the Democratic parties that would be in place as well. So along that line, we have a system where there's a revolving door of corporations who go in, and then they run the government entities like the USDA or the FDA that are designed to regulate the corporations. The people from those corporations, they go in and they get jobs at these regulatory agencies. They change the laws that are designed to regulate those corporations, and then they go right back to them. That's the power of how we're being run by corporations. Now, again, a vote is a vote is a vote. We have the largest population of people behind bars in this country of anywhere in the entire world. And when you label someone a felon in this country, they lose their right to vote. So we have put 2 million black men behind bars, and they generally lose their right to vote. That's not a true democracy. And that's something that, one of the big instigators was the Clinton administration with the 3 strikes you're out policy. 3 strikes, breaking 3 minor laws, and you could be in prison for decades and lose your right to vote for life. So the reason for bringing those things up is I think it's important when we do look at our current political situation to see that although it is different, it is actually following a similar trend to what it has been, regardless of whether it's the Democrats or Republicans. And here's the really big one. So the United States is the most effective country in the entire world at overthrowing democratically elected governments that will not do what we would like them to do. So the CIA has released that at least 5 countries, but it's well over a dozen, that we have gone in when they democratically elect a government, and that government will not give us the oil we want or the resources that we want. We overthrow that government and put someone else in that we would like. And again, that's something that goes back and forth between Democrats or Republicans. So it's just, we tend to like look at the times that we're in, which are incredibly challenging, but not see that this is exactly what this country has been doing for a very long time. We're not new to this. So on that note, I'd like to take 3 deep breaths together. And we're gonna move into some lighter stuff from here. I don't spend too much time talking about problems. I'm very focused on solutions, but I feel very called to just dive into some of these things, and I'm glad you're here with me. So on that note, let's take 3 deep breaths together. I love how 3 deep breaths can make you smile even after all that. How powerful our breath is. I mean, I know that little bit, just relaxed the adrenal system and brought me back here together. Okay, so there's 3 more little concepts that I want to talk about before moving into solutions. And on that note, what time is it? How am I doing?
It's a 7:45.
7:45. All right, so I'm going to 15 minutes I'm going to talk for. Does that work?
And then we have half hour.
And then we have half an hour of Q&A, all right? Nice. Okay, so I'm going to summarize these ones. So talk a little bit about the delusion of sustainability. So imagine you had a friend that comes over to your house for a pancake breakfast every day for a year. You have so much fun together, and then at the end of the breakfast, when they're walking out, they punch you 5 times. And you're like, man, I'd really like you to stop punching me 5 times. And after like a few years, they're like, you know what? All right. So then they just punch you 4 times. Well, that's basically what electric cars are. So they're not sustainable. We could call them less environmentally destructive. That would be more accurate terminology. But when we have lithium-ion mines that are so large, we're talking about holes in the earth so large that we can see them from outer space being made for this technology, that's not sustainable. And it's even questionable of whether it's truly less environmentally destructive when you look at the whole, bigger picture. USDA organic, again, I like to buy my organic food at the store sometimes, but almost nothing that we buy at the grocery store, even if it's labeled organic, is sustainable. Maybe it's less environmentally destructive, but it may also put us into this false safe zone where we think we're doing good when the reality is that the whole world did it. We'd still be absolutely screwed. That's not the definition of sustainable. So just something worth thinking about. Earth code. How many of you have heard of the concept of earth code? All right, a few of us, I love that. I'm so glad to bring this concept to some of you. Earth code is this. So what is the purpose of laws? Like, why do we have laws?
To keep us from killing each other, yeah.
So keep us from killing each other, another way of saying that?
To be able to treat everybody the same and to keep everything organized in order.
Okay, treat everybody. What was that?
Homeostasis.
Yeah, so, and you could say to protect us as well, like, that's the idea. So, earth code is this. Whenever I look at a law and I see, oh, it's not doing what it's supposed to do, sure, it's protecting some people, but it's actually a small group of people, and that in reality, that the earth is paying, the people are paying, the plants and animals are paying, that's when earth code comes in. Earth code has no problem with laws, it's just not willing to follow any unjust laws that are not what they say they are. So Earth Code is looking at every situation from a critical place and just asking the reality behind the situation. You can't make blanket Earth Code for the world. Why? Because it's different in every ecosystem and it's different in every culture. So if any of you are into that idea, I love Earth Code and I welcome you to explore Earth Code with me and bring that more into your life. Okay, the last one before moving into solutions I want to talk about for a moment is privilege. When people started to ask me or demand me to acknowledge my privilege, this was via comments on social media, probably dating back to about 2013, I was pretty dismissive at first because I was like, obviously they don't know me. I'm Jewish, I grew up in a Catholic-dominated town as a Jew, grew up low income. My mom made like $18,000 a year to support 4 kids. I was an outsider, and I was like, I'm not privileged. But then, as I looked at the bigger picture, I realized, actually, I'm in the top few percentage of the most privileged people in the entire world, and so is every person in this room. Although we have, in some ways, we all here have ways in which we aren't privileged, but in reality, when we compare ourselves to the global norm, we're all in the top percentage of the most privileged people in the world. And so, the reason that I acknowledge my privilege is because I'm a seeker of truth and integrity. And to not would be to be existing in a state of delusion. So when sometimes people on the internet say, oh, acknowledging your privilege, virtue signaling, or oh, political correctness, this is not about guilt or shame or anything like that. It's just a pursuit of integrity and truth. And what's also really important is that when we have privilege and we are trying to be of service to a society, to a community, to a place, but we don't understand that our reality is different from their reality, often we do more harm than we do good. And so for me, it's important to understand my place in society, how the world is different for me than it is for other people. And a big part of that is that my need for safety and security is very met through the many privileges that I have. Sleeping outside in Griffith Park for this 3 months of the experiment of non-ownership. As a man, compared to a woman, my need for safety is so much more met, and I have less to be concerned about. As a white man versus a black man, if the police came at night finding me dumpster diving behind the grocery store, it's reasonable for a black man to be concerned for their life. I don't have to be concerned for my life, maybe a ticket, maybe some inconvenience or comfort. When I was sleeping in Griffith Park, I had a very quiet spot in the shrubs. But it was about 1.5 miles walking uphill from the grocery store and stuff, and I realized my physical ability allowed me to have that place of comfort. But other people were sleeping in very noisy, undesirable, congested spaces because they didn't have the physical ability to be able to do that. One other note, though, is some people would say, well, Robin, you can only do what you're doing because of your privilege. And that I will joyfully and cheerfully say I don't agree with. And here's the reason why. I believe that when we say that, we erase the fact that the only reason that we have any real justice in this country, the only reason why we still have an ecosystem, is because people with less privilege, people who would be called underprivileged potentially, are the ones who are standing up, are the ones who are putting themselves out there, are the ones who are risking their lives, risking their basic comfort. And we have what we have because people with less privilege are willing to do so much more. And also, I have so many colleagues, so many diverse colleagues who are doing what I do. Maybe not as extreme as me, because you won't find white people doing things as extreme as me either. You're not going to find too many people doing it quite that. But I have so many friends that are living off the grid, that are foraging their food, that are breaking free from societal norms, that are existing outside of the monetary system, that are standing up as activists, that are from so many different backgrounds of life and have way less privilege than me. And so when we say that, it erases the reality of so many of these people. So on that note, I want to move into solutions. And I'm going to summarize these solutions because I really want to leave plenty of time for questions. So I'm going to move through these like I never have before. Okay. First thing that I want to share with solutions is that none of this is about giving up. This is actually about finding what we really want. All of us are seeking to meet our basic human needs. This is my belief. We're seeking the needs to belong, to matter, for connection, for community, for meaning, for purpose, for safety, and for security. All of us are trying to meet these basic needs, but the way we're doing it is stripping the others' abilities to be able to do this. So this is just about saying, I'm not going to give up living a good life. I'm just not willing to do it at the expense of other people anymore. So it's not giving up, it's actually meeting those needs deeper than we ever have before. So I'm also focused on bottom up because I'm focused on empowering you for what you can do right now. There's a lot of top-down approach as well, and I encourage you to be there if that's what you want, but I'm so excited for what we can do right now as individuals to transform our lives and our communities. And as we do that, we can also topple the structures above us at the same time. And no top-down approach will ever happen if we don't have us doing it. The comfortable are not going to change unless the movement arises from below. And then also just say, with these solutions, you can take them from small to radical. You get to decide if you want to bring any of these into your life, what level you take them to. They can be little trickles in your life, or it can be a whole flood into your existence. So first, living in community, breaking free from, what I mentioned, the very individualistic life and living in community. So you can explore that through the Foundation for Intentional Communities. The website's ic.org. Or the Global Eco-Village Network. Those are some places that you can explore living in community. We don't have to live in community to get involved in community. So right here, right now, this is community. This is bringing people together. Ecologistics that's one of the things that they do so well here in the San Luis Obispo area, is bring people together. So take down phone numbers, take down email addresses, or even just take down addresses and show up at each other's houses. I definitely encourage that. I do that, it's fun. So sharing is a wonderful form of community. So the library is a wonderful place to instead of needing our own of everything, we can share. So there's even like tool libraries. At the Ecologistics fall one is when there's the repair cafe. So we can, that's a cafe where you can get your stuff repaired rather than throwing it out and getting new ones. We can downsize. If we have every single thing we need inside of our house, it becomes very easy to not go outside and not need to be a part of anything. So getting rid of more stuff. I've decided I'm not going to get a pair of fingernail clippers this whole year, even when I start getting things again. So at least I need to meet up with at least one person a week to get my fingernails clipped. But you could do that with a lawnmower or an electric screwdriver or a blender. Like you can, just share with your community through downsizing. We can also downsize our involvement with money. Looking at every way we're using money and ask, is this bringing value into my life, or is this actually sucking the value out of my life, and letting go of those and using money in a more intentional way. Breaking free from cars. So, not saying not having a car necessarily, that would be the more extreme level, but just riding our bikes more, walking more, using public transportation more, sharing cars with others more. You start to be more connected too when you're outside of the cars. A lot of these solutions are around that, being connected. Breaking free from plastic. So just looking at all the ways we have plastic in our life and seeing, is there a way that we can be doing this differently? And sometimes it's very hard, but there's a lot of things that are much easier. Reducing our waste. Probably you've heard of the concept of zero waste. A way to start that is just look in your garbage can and see what garbage am I creating, and then ask, what can I do differently? If it's paper towels, using reusable towels. If it's disposable coffee cups, then a reusable cup, like you don't need a $30 water bottle. You can just use a jar. I'm not judging you if you have a nice water bottle. I support you. Okay, we can compost everything. Compost everything that we can. Now, you can compost your food scraps and your leaves, but you can compost your hair. You can compost your snot. You can compost your poop even. That's called humanure. How many of you have ever used a compost toilet? Okay, a good number of you. Sweet. And how many of you have a compost toilet? All right, I'll be coming over later. I got a present for you. If you want to learn about that, you can read the Humanure Handbook by Joseph Jenkins. His nickname is the Duke of Duty, or the Pope of Poop. Very similar to me, except he swears a lot. Chemicals, looking at all the chemicals we're using, and if we're using anything that kills life, I mean, okay, it's actually, I take that back. Killing life is a part of life. You can't exist without killing some life. But if we're using chemicals that destroy everything in its path, we can look at ways we can change that. So we put a lot of chemicals on our body with our hygiene items, using natural items instead. And then our cleaning products. When we use those chemicals, they go down the drain into our water supply. And I'm told that a baby today is born with 270 chemicals in their bloodstream, which is what Rachel Carson was teaching us about back in 1962 when Silent Spring came out. We can grow more food. We can forage for more food. We can support local farmers. We can support local regenerative agriculture. We can go to the farmer's market. Got to spend a little bit of time there this evening.
Or the community farm.
Or a community farm. So we can be a steward of the land. Find land that we can work with where we're being stewards to it. We can love our water. Some people say water is life. We can deepen our connection with the earth. We don't need to go deep, deep, deep into nature to do that. We can hug the trees. We can listen to the birds. We can smell the flowers. We can speak to the squirrels. Which brings me into the next one, which is dropping societal norms. And hugging trees in public helps with that. You can even start kissing them or licking them. I like to lick trees. It really does something for me. And it definitely helps to drop the societal, norm, because most people would think you're crazy doing that. But hey, the last thing I want to be is normal in a society that thinks what we're doing is not crazy. So we can practice gratitude. When we're grateful, we have so much more. We can live in service. Really good news that when we choose to live in service, we will never run out. Never run out of meaning and purpose. There will always be somebody who needs our support. There will always be plants and animals that are looking for a fellow friend of it in a human. There will always be an ecosystem that needs some service. We can get off the devices more. So just shutting off our devices at 8, an hour before bed, and then waiting a half hour to turn them on is very powerful. We can practice compassionate communication or nonviolent communication. That's been one of the core practices of my life for the last 3 years. There's a book called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg that you can dive into. Practice wealth redistribution. If you have more money than you need, then distribute that to the places where it's going to serve the people, serve the earth. One way of doing that is by taking part in the land back movement, so returning land to the original stewards of the land. You can learn about that through landback.org. That's a website that has a lot of teaching. There's also the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust, started by Leah Penniman of Soulfire Farm, which is particularly about putting land back into the hands of black farmers and gardeners. We can divest, so take our money out of any way in which we're invested in destruction. And so you can do more green portfolio type investments. Just know that the reality is that there's destruction in that as well. But we can also just invest in the now to invest in our future. We know we need clean air right now. We know we need fresh water. We know that we need basic human rights met, and we don't even know if we have a future. We don't even know if money will exist in 30 years. But we do know that we have a now and that life exists now. So we can invest in that. We can take our money out of the big banks, Chase and Wells Fargo and Bank of America. All that money is being invested in destructive infrastructure projects. So we can move that to a local credit union. We can practice voluntary simplicity. I think there doesn't need to be too much said on returning to what Gandhi said of live simply so that others may simply live. When we're living simply, we're not plugged into all of these systems of exploitation and destruction. It's a really powerful thing to do, to simplify our lives. One way that I do that is I've committed to life to earning less than the federal poverty threshold. And so what that means is I'm not paying federal taxes. I'm not paying for police brutality, the military-industrial complex, the prison system, bailing out the big banks, putting all that money into oil. So that's, if you want to look into the war tax resistance movement that started in the Vietnam War era, but there's a lot of people who practice that today. But you can also do that through forming a nonprofit. There's other ways to be able to avoid putting our money into these destructive systems and put it into the local community. So we can educate ourselves. So, on my website, I share books, documentaries, and people that are the ones that I'm really excited about. That's at robingreenfield.org/books/people and /films. And there's also /nonprofits too. So those are some places you can explore for educating yourselves. We can build skills, build the skills we need. Earth Skills gatherings are a wonderful place to do that. Finding wholeness and completeness within, like I said, one of the most powerful things that we can do. That brings us to the last solution. And that for me really is listening to the people who have been living in closer harmony with the earth for thousands of years. So there are so many cultures of people that know how to do things differently and even are doing things differently today. So Robin Kimmerer, she's the author of Braiding Sweetgrass. That book changed my life. I would highly recommend that as a book to read. There is a book by the Haudenosaunee, which are over in what's now called New York, called The Thanksgiving Address. It's a 10-minute little book that if we led our environmental movement by that book, wow, what a different movement we would have. Lila June Johnston, she's up in the north of the Bay Area, and her recent dissertation on indigenous foodways is very powerful, as well as her TED Talk. There's so much more that I could share in that regard, but we'll continue forward. And so I also encourage you to look into the gift economy and the circular economy as two big different ways of looking at things. So in closing, some people would say, all right, in the times that we live in, why even try? Like, things are so, that it's like, can I even make a difference? My answer to that is simple. I value life. I value my life. I value the life of every single person in this room. I value the life of every being out there. And that's enough. I simply value life. That's enough of a reason to try. It doesn't matter whether we're around for 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000,000 years, because I value life right now, what we have. So my encouragement as to where to start is to start with yourself. You can only be you, except for the few of us who have ascended that. If so, please teach me. We can only be in the moment that we're in and where we are. So that's where we start. My encouragement is to start with what you're most excited about, not with what is daunting and overwhelming. Start with what you're most excited about. Maybe it's growing some food or foraging. Maybe it's living in community. Maybe it's starting a community organization. Whatever it is you're excited about, start there and then make one positive change at a time. I have a list of the first 100 changes that I made. It's at robingreenfield.org/100. So you can use that as a template. You can even print that out and, check them off as you make it. And one step at a time, break free and become the change that you wish to see in the world. So I love you all very much. I'm so glad to be done talking, although the talking will continue in questions. But yeah.